Half a day. The Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture is now called to order. Today is Wednesday, June 23rd, 2021. The time is 2:04 p.m. Notices for this oversight hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Wednesday, June 16, and again on Monday, June 21, in compliance with the Open Government Law. The notice was also published in the Guam Daily Post on Wednesday, June 16, and Monday, June 21, 2021. This hearing is hosted by the Guam Legislature's MIS staff and the Land Committee staff. I thank them for their assistance. All participants will remain on mute by the host until called upon by the chair. First, I will do an introduction of the limited scope of issues for today. We will then hear from the Chamorro Land Trust Commission Chairman and the Commissioners and the Acting Director, and thank you for being with us here today. And then questions from the panel of senators will be acknowledged. Each senator will be allowed to pose a couple of questions to an individual testifying for a round, and we will repeat that as necessary. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my colleagues today, including the Minority Leader, Senator Chris Duenas, and Senator Joanne Brown. Thank you, Senators, for being here. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the Chairperson of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, Mr. John Regis. Thank you for being here, and of course the Commissioners. And I'm going to ask you, Mr. Regis, if you could please introduce your team that is here with you today.
Good afternoon, Senators. Good afternoon, Speaker. I have with me this afternoon our Commissioners, Commissioner Sina Arlene Bordalio and Commissioner Angela Santos, as well as from the agency we have the Acting Director, Ms. Angie Camacho, our Program Coordinator, Mr. Joey Cruz, and our Senior Land Agent, Ms. Eileen Chargloff.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. It's my understanding that we also have at least one CLTC beneficiary or applicant also present today. And so I have informed her that we will hear from the Commission first, and then we will hear from any others who come to testify. Okay? But this is primarily oversight to hear from this Commission as to the status updates. All right, so as you know, there are many issues surrounding the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, some of them decades without resolution, and we cannot solve all of them today. And for example, we will not go into detail today about the operational budget or the commercial lease issues or even the null and void issue leases until the Chamorro Land Trust Commission has finished their review of those. The agenda for today's public hearing, oversight hearing, is to receive status updates on the following, which I believe in the bigger picture are the most important issues, and all other issues are important because of their impact on these two big picture items. So first, it is the impediments and solutions for the implementation of Public Law 35-112, which is an act to add a new Chapter 75A to amend Section 5109A, both of Title 21, Guam Code Annotated, relative to preserving the land restoration and justice mission of the Chamorro Land Trust Act. This law, as you know, was put into place to confirm a settlement agreement that the Chamorro Land Trust had entered into. And in that settlement agreement, they had established a different eligibility criteria that was intended to expand the number of people who are eligible for Chamorro Land Trust leases. And it has other requirements to determine the eligibility, and so we are here to determine today if the CLTC is able to swiftly confirm those who have been on the waiting list since 1995, especially those applicants, and if we are able to afford genealogy or title research services to those applicants to avoid them from, having to run around and try to prove their eligibility after all these years. So Of course, this law recognizes asks that affidavits be submitted that show that either property owned before the war was taken or property that was used was restricted. So our intention is to determine the plans of the Commission in order to address these issues. The other big picture item is the inventory of the Chamorro Land Trust lands. And so because we have so many on the waiting list for residential and agricultural leases, I want to see if we have any updates on as to what lands are in the inventory that are available for residential and agricultural leases, how many of these pieces of property need to be still surveyed, registered, how many of them are lacking utilities, and how we can assist in that process. We've seen the Commission in meetings recently dedicate a lot of time to commercial leases. I'm concerned that we are deeming land available for commercial leasing or not necessary for residential or agricultural leases while we have this 8,000 on the waiting list. So what I'd like to do is ensure that we can match those on the waiting list, those who've been waiting, with property that is available. So we can very confidently all feel comfortable about land being used for other purposes. So I'm looking at a list of on the director's report that was submitted in 2021, talking about items that need to be done, in particular numbers 3, 5, and 6. They are to register and survey all lands of the Chamorro Land Trust inventory and determine best use, to reestablish the integrity of the residential and agricultural waiting lists, and to prepare for future leasing to include a preparation of baseline report with property inventory, which would be the CLTC supply versus the CLT lessee and application demand, to determine the long-term planning needs. Future leasing would require that CLTC coordinate with utility agencies to plan current and future leasing efforts to run parallel with planned capital improvement projects. Also, to prepare for future leasing, CLTC be looking at subdivision compliance checks for current leases, developing communities, and coordinating with Guam Housing Corporation to fast-track home building. I realized that Public Law 35-112, again, which was to codify the terms of the settlement agreement, was signed into law in December of 2020. That was in the middle of the pandemic. But we have received calls in our office from some original applicants or on the waiting list who have said that they are being told they are not eligible and they are being asked to run around to obtain proof of their eligibility. We've also, acknowledged that during the pandemic, the island's economy has changed drastically, and it appears that the threat of diminished prosperity among our residents is very real, and the eviction moratorium is set to expire on June 30th, and I think that's another very real scenario. So affordable housing, which has historically been in short supply, and with recent cost trends, manpower issues, and inflation, they have become more critical. So as part of our efforts, the legislature has asked in our Resolution 9336 that the governor allocate some of the American Rescue Plan funds designated for Guam to the Chamorro Land Trust. And we put in the amount $25 million to bring in long-awaited water and sewer infrastructure towards CLTC properties to support the building of affordable homes for families and allow agricultural and economic diversification. This infusion of infrastructure to large tracts will encourage the development of affordable and permanent housing and assist with the establishment of additional business activity in parts of Guam currently underutilized. And now, without further ado, Mr. Chair, I will yield to you if you would like to provide an update for us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Speaker. So I guess we'll go ahead and begin with the eligibility for 35112. The commissioners just approved the last piece of the settlement agreement for the update of the rules and regulations. And so we just approved that subject to typographical errors, and that is with the AG's office to finalize. And then there have been things put into place in regards to ensuring the new eligibility, and the affidavits as well, right, are available in the office that's given to our constituents. So as far as the settlement agreement, that's where the commissioners, we just approved that on our last meeting last Thursday. And so that's just now getting it through and sending it down to the legislature. But I'm gonna pass it over to Mr. Cruz, Joey Cruz, to kind of give additional updates on what what the agency has in place in regards to the new eligibility requirements.
Good afternoon, Senators and Speaker Terlaje. In addition to what the chairman had just mentioned, our staff will be undergoing training provided by the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission, who has custody of all the bond files that would assist the employees to determine eligibility, our constituents' eligibility for the program. In addition to these settlement agreement, you touched on unregistered property. Currently, there are 8 parcels that are either have been filed already in court or will be filed within the next couple of months. The total acreage for all 8 equates to about 800 acres. In our last audit for year-end September 30, 2020, it was disclosed that the CLTC has 3,274.98 acres that is unregistered.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cruz, can you repeat that last one?
For our financial audit ending September 30, 2020, it was disclosed that the Chamorro Land Trust Commission has 3,274.98 acres that is unregistered.
Under what?
Unregistered?
Oh, unregistered, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Then to touch on the infrastructure installation, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we sent a letter to the utility agencies, which is Guam Water Works and Guam Power Authority, requesting for a copy of their shape files. It would enable us to accurately identify which parcels don't have utility connections, water or power or sewer, and it would also enable us to plan better and to project how much it may cost. We did reach out to a private company who does the installation of water. It's going to cost us about $100 every foot to install the water line. So as soon as we are provided a copy of the shape files, we'll be able to determine the actual distance and the actual amount we may need to install utilities. And then, that's all.
Well, I'll just add to that. So one of the requests that the commission has given to the agency was we reviewed the priority list, right, that was presented to the director in 2019. And we did deem that those are still very relevant for us, but we also added where we wanted to prioritize, and definitely the prioritization is going to be on the land registration and infrastructure. So what we've asked the acting director as well as Joey and the administrative team is for exactly what Joey kind of portrayed, is to be able to get those infrastructure layered on top of existing Chamorro Land Trust inventory, so we can know exactly where these properties are that are most suited for residential leases, and know exactly whether or not there is infrastructure present. And if there's no infrastructure present, we will focus on those lands that already have infrastructure present, or at least closer than it being non-existent. So we've asked them to basically formulate a strategic plan that will take us through that process, right? Identifying, those lands, adding in the layers with the utilities that's present or not, and then prioritizing, right? So we can have at least focusing on the unregistered first, so that we can continue to register those lands. Because as of the 3,240, I forget the exact number, 800 acres of that is already in process, right? And that's what we've asked Attorney Toff to continue to keep us posted on where we're at with those registrations. In the meantime, part of the strategic plan is to have the team, right, put together a priority of those lands that are still unregistered and needs to be surveyed, and focusing on the ones that have infrastructure, right, at least close or on premise, and to put those up onto the list to begin the registration process as well. So, that's kind of our, from an order of prioritization, the commissioners asked the team to focus on that be number one. And of course, number two is how do we address the 1995 list, right, which is roughly 8,000 applicants that is still, that have not yet been worked on. And so that one, the prior director had began a process, but I think that it'll behoove us to actually have a small committee within the agency to help figure that out and iron out all the moving parts that we need to, and how to address it, right? Because there's going to be a lot of research, again, with each one almost as we continue to address them. Some may no longer be with us, right, as the applicant, and then we're going to have to figure if they've designated a successor, and then we have to go find those successors, et cetera, right? And so we approved to begin the next set, which is 20 agricultural, 20 residential, and unfortunately that has yet to to begin. But we've also asked in our last meeting if the team could kind of bifurcate our resource to focus on the work that we're doing, the cleanup, the backlog, but also to be able to address this 20, right, that we had approved, I'd say 3-4 meetings ago, for the next set of residential and the next agricultural applicants. So, just kind of in making sure that we have the new rules and regs in place. We're following the new 75A guidelines for eligibility, and begin our prioritization of what the team needs to focus on. So just wanted to add that as well on top of what Mr. Cruz provided.
Thank you. Is there any commissioner who would like to add to that?
I do, Madam Speaker.
Santos.
Buenas, honorable speakers, and Speaker Terlaje, thank you for having us here. I just wanted to add that I do have the list on hand for the next 20 applicants that we will be tending to on hand if you'd like it.
Thank you. All right, if I could ask a couple questions then on the, I haven't seen the rules, I guess, so I wasn't aware that they were passed in the last meeting, so that's good news, but yeah. Do you expect that, do the rules require the applicants to do the research themselves, or is the commission going to be assisting the applicants in doing that research? I know you said you have an agreement with the Ancestral Lands Commission and the bond file research.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I did reach out to Guam Ancestral Lands Commission, and I asked them to assist us in training our land agents. So that'll take place this week, as a matter of fact. We've been working really hard to meet all these requirements. So we'll send a couple of land agents up to Guam Ancestral Lands to be trained, and then they'll bring it back and train the other land agents. So that's something that we are currently working on. No, we don't expect the applicants to do much running around. We'd like to assist as much as we can.
Okay, it's my understanding that if we start with the bond files and we make a analysis of all the lands that were taken and the names of those who were attributed to those lands, that we can work backwards from that. And in fact, I believe that would be an excellent document to preserve for the history of Guam. You will have been assisting in this permanent record being accessible, and that we're able to use it not just for these purposes, but for other purposes, so that we can trace back. And I think, it's not an overwhelming. I mean, it's hard, but I'm very sure that we can do it with your help. We can make a list of all those whose lands was taken, that, especially those with records in the bond file, right? And work from there, so that if any applicant can match themselves up to that, all of those families, we can even, I would announce here that, we would like to encourage families to do genealogies. And to start with doing genealogies back to at least those generations that were living during the World War II, or when the bulk of the land takings were done. And so that not just for these purposes, but for other purposes that might come to fruition, I think that's a good history to keep, and that we can help you to archive that and keep those records available for everybody, so that we don't have to do this again, right? But so we're trying to show persons whose land was taken by government takings, or that they are the ancestors of those persons whose lands was taken. And that's why I'm talking about the genealogy, because for all practical purposes, the faster we can trace all the current applicants up to that generation of the actual land takings, the faster our work is done. And of course, we're also going to try to do the same for those whose names will not appear in those bond files or in any of the land records, because they were not owners of the land, they were users of the land. Those, I would agree with you, are the more difficult ones, right? But not insurmountable either. And that I'm going to try to do what I can to solicit the assistance of, if you can handle the land records part, right? And getting that kind of spreadsheeted out or some other usable format easily for your department and for those applicants that come in. I'm going to try to help these, enlist the services of the assistance of, for example, the Commission on Chamorro Language and History, the University of Guam. We have others who are very much kind of specialized already in genealogy of Chamorros, and so that they can help to these families to get a very solid record of their genealogy, at least up to that time period. I know they go very much farther than that, but we're going to get that for these purposes at least. And I want to thank the Ancestral Lands Commission for assisting you with this as well. So is it fair to say that we're not going to be sending these applicants who have been on the waiting lists around and around to get proof?
So it is our intention to assist the applicants as much as possible, which is why we've reached out to the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission to train our agents, and that way we can handle as much as we can in our office.
Okay, great. I know that your budget hearing is coming up, so any details we need to flesh out at that time, please be ready for that. And so what about, on the infrastructure side, the land registrations, is there an impediment to doing more land registrations? Is this 800 what you plan to do for the year, or are there more that are planned to do for the year? I mean, how fast can we get more of this done?
The 800 acres that was stated involves 8 parcels that have been cases that have been filed in court or will be filed in court in a month or two. One of the hurdles we do encounter is the serving process of the land registration. We have reached out to the USPS, Revenue and Tax, to try to gather data on how contact information for the surrounding owners that need to be served. So that's one of the hurdles during the land registration process, is the process serving.
Oh. Okay, but you're getting your information from the Department of Land Management's records, right, as to who the adjacent landowners are?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
but-
We exhaust all resources we can.
I see. So, just FYI, when we talked about the Attorney General's budget in a meeting, I had asked them how many land registrations they were planning. It did not seem to be one of the top items on their agenda, so I just want to make sure if you could please just keep a close eye on that and to follow up that, make sure that these are really going to be done. Is there a backlog in the surveying for these registrations or not? It's at the court level.
From my understanding with discussions with our attorney, it's at the court level already, or will be, because he would need to file a couple of cases.
Okay. All right, that's good news, because before the impediment was they weren't surveyed yet. So the registrations could only proceed as fast as the surveys were being done. And so, yeah, I hope that both will continue to proceed. For the 20, Mr. Chair, if you could just clarify, you said 20 agricultural, 20 residential. Is this the ones that you adopted in a meeting earlier, right? Or is this a plan that you're going to do this every month, or what?
May I, real fast?
Sure.
Speaker, the list that I gave you, that was, thank you. The list that I gave you, that was approved in December of last year.
Okay.
Right. So,
Oh, so
Right.
we're still on those.
we have been dealing with people. So, on a regular daily basis, the operations in the office doesn't exist. It doesn't come to a halt, or it still proceeds, right? So people come in and they have issues dealing with their properties, whether
Yes.
it's environmental or whatever it be in the case. So we deal with that on a daily too. And then we were dealt with a couple of instances where we had to put aside and stop all the constituent matters and deal with something in-house. So we dealt with that, and so now we're proceeding. Now with the litigation, we adopted and passed the regulations and rules last Thursday, so we're on that note right now. But that does not cease, right? We do not stop there. But that is still the list that is pending and waiting to be addressed.
Okay, so
And
are
that-
these 20 ag and 20 residential matched up with land, or not yet? Is that still yet to be done, or is that done in advance?
I'll pass.
The 20 residential and 20 agriculture applicants their applications will be vetted, and their qualifications still need to be reviewed.
I'm sorry, I thought you said these were approved.
No, those are those are the lists from December that we approved to proceed to move to the next group in December. Hence, when we were discussing it last Thursday, we check on those, right? What's the progress? Has there been any movement? And that's where we asked the team if they could bifurcate some of their efforts to focus on things that come through on a day-to-day basis, the backlog that they're dealing with, but also this next 10 agriculture, 10 residential, to work on them and progress with them so that we can continue to chip away on the list, right, of the who's next in line. So approved, meaning they were approved to proceed, right, to move to the next constituents and applications on the list. That's what the approved was referencing, Speaker.
Okay, so the 20 and the 20 that were approved in December are different than the 10 and the 10 that you're saying they're working on now and hoping to approve.
It's one and the same, Speaker. It's
they're one and the
10 residential,
Oh,
10 agricultural. So yes, it was since December that we've approved the staff to move forward. Barring all other issues that have arose, and the day-to-day visits that we get from our constituents, and then all the backlog, right? The constituent matters that we deal with on a monthly basis. Those are all backlog. So what I asked the team is, let's kind of divide our efforts so that we can focus on the backlog. We still want to correct those or issue those leases that have been pending, but let's begin going through those applicants, right, that we approved in December, and to please make the effort that those will be worked on.
okay, so you're saying that for these 10 and 10, we still need to determine their eligibility?
It's beginning from square one, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then they also have not been matched with land.
Correct.
All right,
So
and
it-
going
it-
forward, what is going to be your process?
So, okay, I'll pass that over to Joey, because they are also have been tasked to come up with a plan with
Okay,
that.
great, yes.
Barring what was presented or being planned, right, with the previous director, I've asked them to just start from scratch and see how we will address this. And so I'll pass it over to Joey and Miss Eileen.
Regarding the next 20, whether they're, or the next 40, whether they're associated with land or not at this time. We're still vetting and determining their qualification based on the 35-112. But at the same time, simultaneously, we're also conducting a land inventory of what's available within our inventory. Aside from that, the land inventory will also serve as our correction tool. We have some tracts of lands where they were awarded a quarter acre, but because of the new zoning laws and other laws that are in place, we had to increase the acreage size to half an acre because there's no available sewer within that area. So what happens is that if for a half acre lot we have two lessees, but that were both awarded quarter acre lots, we have to move that individual to another parcel of property that half acre size to comply with the existing laws. So aside from vetting the applications and determining qualifications, we're simultaneously also conducting a land inventory project to resolve some of the issues, the pending issues that we still have. So.
All right, well, as to the inventory, I know this is not new. This is something that's been going on for years, where the commission has, I thought, been working on determining its inventory. And part of that, is confirming that by registration, but really just determining which lands are suitable for residential. And I'm hoping that you have an idea of some of, especially your larger tracts that are available now for residential, and that you can apprise us as to whether these have utilities on them or they don't. And so that we can make a determination right away whether, we can get some of this ARP money and bring out the utilities, and that's the most efficient thing to do, or that we are going to go back to square one and divide it up into larger tracts. I would rather bring the utilities out and get more leases out as possible, but we need to know which of these tracts are the ones that you have prioritized in your inventory for residential leases, for agricultural leases, and which ones need infrastructure. Do you have that type of an, inventory available?
Yes, Madam Speaker. We have already identified several parcels of property. Our survey guys had already conducted a tabletop subdivision plan. One of the the tracks that we can mention is track 10123 in Jigo. It's the parcel of property right before the Paradise Meadows. So infrastructure, utilities is within the 100 feet. Also, we have begun the process of researching the SUDA grant or loan program. We also have received many unsolicited proposals regarding affordable housing. In the next board meeting, we will present those options to the board for their consideration and approval, whether we go in the direction of the SUDA grant or loan process, or we go through an RFP or an IFB regarding affordable housing. So we have identified several parcels of property for affordable housing or for residential subdivisions, and it has been surveyed based on the tabletop that would meet the area density or the minimum square footage that would consider that there's utilities within the area or within the subdivision.
Okay, can we get a copy of that listing? That's exactly what I want to see. I want to see how many do you have ready. If you've got a tract that can accommodate 100 leases, my next question is going to be, why aren't we seeing 100 leases being processed? For example, 100 applicants. That's, you know, and has the property been divided? If we've got infrastructure. So you're telling me that we have property that already has water.
Not necessarily water running through or within the
No, but
the
in
parcel,
the area.
but within the area.
Of course,
and,
yes.
and we'll provide you the schemes or the sketches that delineate our subdivision plan.
Is that where these people, the 10 and the 10 and the 20, are going to be matched up?
If we get utilities installed within that subdivision, then that's a possibility. Also, we have the land for the landless property that is still available. So
that determination has not been made yet as to which tract of property we're using for the leases that are being processed right now?
we have identified parcels for subdivision. Although if those utilities are not installed, then we're going to have to go back and redesign the subdivision. So instead of a 1/4 acre, we're going to have to make it a 1/2 acre, which could be used for the next 20 that has been approved for processing.
Okay, I'd like to see the list of the properties and their potential. For example, this tract has this many acres. It can be divided into 10 leases or 20 leases if we can't bring the water in, right? And then what the estimate is to bring the water in. And so are you telling me that there is no land available now for these leases that you are processing?
No, we do have land available. It's just if they just don't have any utilities within the 100 feet. The tabletop surveys that I mentioned was our proposed project for our subdivisions, but considers that there's utilities within the subdivision. Although we could provide both tabletop surveys, one with utilities and one without, which would give the total number of leases we could award within that subdivision.
How many tracts of are you looking at to subdivide?
So far, our survey guys had planned 3 different parcels.
What villages?
I believe all in Jigo and Derito.
How many lots potentially?
Off the top of my head, track 10123 can potentially, if utilities are installed, 160 lots, with consideration for a commercial lot for development that can provide for a convenience store or something of that nature to support the subdivision.
So to add, to add to that, Speaker, that is part of the strategic plan, again, that the team is tasked to identify additional tracks, overlay, right, whether there's utilities or not, so that we can start putting that in the list, right? So continue to build that list. So right now we have 3, and we want to, of course, increase that, right, so that we can definitely have parcels or tracks available for our, as we start really navigating through the bulk lists, right? The 1995 list. So, the other factor too, right, that is also working with the constituent, with the applicant, right, and kind of, there's always that conversation of this is where you're slated, right? This is the land that you're slated to. So there's also that factor, because that's what we've also dealt with the commission, right? Especially when there's relocations, right? We always want to make sure that it's also suitable for the applicant, and working through that process. So just wanted to add to that what Joey was.
Have you made any changes in regards to that in your new rules and regulations or your amendments to the rules where you are going to determine if they decline a property that you offer them, what happens in your new rules? Are you going to keep looking for other parcels to offer them, or are they going to be offered, take it or leave it?
We are considering to propose 3 different options at one time. If the constituent should decline the first option, that constituent will fill out a decline form. If the constituent should decide to decline the second option, another decline form would be completed. The third option, the constituent would need to accept. If not, they'll be reshuffled within the waiting list.
All right. So 3 parcels from Jigo and Dedido, if they are subdivided, potentially 160 lots or leases that can be given out if utilities are made available to those properties.
The 160 lots is only specifically for track 10123.
Oh,
Yeah, that's just for one.
so what about the others?
The others, potentially the same amount or little less. Track 10123, I believe the total area size is about 30 acres.
Okay, so all 3 are approximately the same size.
Give or take.
Okay. Okay, well, that's good news. And you've leased out before without water being available, though, right? But you're saying now that you are going to, you're looking at making water available?
We are exploring all options.
Okay, appreciate that. I have also talked to Waterworks about this, so I'm hoping that they're going to assist you as much as possible. They have also asked for your cooperation so that they can try to, when they are making their plans and their improvements, include Chamorro Land Trust properties along those routes, right?
So
Go ahead.
just to add to that
Sure.
with Guam Waterworks, right? We had initiated discussions on the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, and that's one thing that will be on our on the acting director's plate is to try and pick back up where we left off for that MOU with Guam Waterworks.
Great. All right. Yeah, I'm concerned that if there is ARP money available for the land trust to improve these properties or properties, nearby, that we are also ready on the land trust side, right, to subdivide and issue the leases out. That there's not a delay, or that there's not a delay in identifying which parcels are best suited for that purpose. Okay, and. Oh, what about the land for the land trust? You mentioned, the land for the landless lots that have been reverted back to Chamorro Land Trust now. How many of those are available for immediate lease?
At this time, Speaker, we don't have that exact number, but we could provide it to you after the hearing.
Can you guess an approximate number? Is it like less than 10 or?
No. I want to say maybe 80.
80?
Safely 80 lots available.
That's fantastic. So what's the delay in issuing those out? Processing the applicants?
Yes, and that's a potential option for the next 20 residential applicants that we are going to vet and determine their qualification.
All right, well, that land's been available for a while now, right? I think that was at least one term ago that, maybe 2 years now that those reverted. So just to the commissioners, yeah, that those lands have been available, not issued out to these applicants who have been waiting. So that's, I don't know, I just want to try to make a point that this is urgent, right? I think every day that we wait and we don't disperse these lands and make it, give them an opportunity to create some kind of affordable housing for themselves, that it's just waste, right? They're, especially those that have infrastructure and they are already subdivided. All right, I'm going to open it up to Senator Dueñas.
Jesus Masi, Madam Chair. One of the reasons why we met, why I was so excited when we met on our proposal, was I am aware of these tracks that are available, and it is a game changer. So I just wanted to mention to the chairman once again, as the speaker was mentioning. So, have you included, or will you include in your next meeting? Because I can't imagine the governor wouldn't see, from what we've proposed, the wisdom in this proposal of the $25 million for infrastructure. Will this, or can this be at the top of your agenda to direct Joey and the rest to make sure that we would be prepared to move quickly on that infrastructure capability?
Yes, so it is as part of the priorities, right? We've made sure that that's a priority number one in regards to the land registration and the survey. And so we do have it in the inventory 3,200 and some odd unregistered. So that's what we're going to focus on. But to your point of, and to the speaker's point on identifying those lots that will, the biggest bang for our buck, right? And for the most number of residential leases primarily, that the team has, we have 3, but our goal is to have more, right? Just so that we can have those readily available as, from a list perspective, yes.
Because, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure that we have some kind of concurrence here. And one of the reasons, like I said, we're talking about the ability to give, minimum land sizes, under these developments, so we can help the most amount of people. I know that when I met with Joey and the team, and one of the major synergies that exists here is because of Guam Housing Corporation as well. They are the key to the funding mechanism on affordable housing, and particularly when we're talking about subdivision capability. This sets up all the parameters for loans that would be approvable because of all the setbacks and everything else that is prepared, plus the infrastructure. This gives the value of this affordable housing project because it has all of the components to create, an improvement on the property that is mortgage ready. And so that's why I'm challenging your team to get there, and that would really, I think, excite everyone too about the other stuff that's on board here. So I wanted to mention that on 35112, as I was hearing you, Mr. Chairman, are you saying that the rules and regs have to be approved and codified before you actually follow this law?
So as part of the settlement agreement, that was the last, that was the last piece that we needed to action. Unfortunately, I just got wind of it in April, hence trying to accelerate it and make sure that we were within the 1-year term. We are demonstrating that we're moving it along. And, we just approved it on our last meeting, so yes.
Okay, well, that's great progress, because
Yes.
another thing in talking about our priorities, to stay in compliance and to make sure all the work you're doing leading up to this, we've got to get that done and make sure that that's in place so that this is, not for naught. But I just wanted to make sure also that I was hearing that the process in and of itself is still going on, but the key to this would be the final situation is the approval of the rules and regs.
Correct.
Okay. Joey, I wanted to see, because I remember when we had worked together on this before, on the land registration and going beyond the subdivisions, because when we really look at the cost of infrastructure, and so I'd like to present 2 things to you. One is to make sure, Mr. Chairman, also we're meeting with the utilities right away on the anticipation of, this possibility, to basically lay out, what would be the plan? Because this is good for power and water too. These are new customers. These are, under a subdivision situation, you would imagine that those that can get a mortgage are going to be able to service that with power and water. So we want to know that they're ready with their grid plan to go in and lay it out for you. Joey, have we gone down that road?
Like the chairman had mentioned earlier, there has been meetings with the utilities.
Okay, I just think, Chairman, in anticipation of this, if we could also push that up
Yes.
to the priority list, to get that part moving. The final thing on this, Joey, with the new land registrations you got coming online, on the cadastral with regard to GIS, and is there still that working relationship you have with Department of Land Management that can identify those properties as well? Because a perfect example is like EHAP. A lot of the job we had to do was go back and reissue to others because, as you said on the tabletop, Joey, it looks good, but it's not necessarily topography sometimes. So some people have been issued lots that, maybe if you had a lot of money to do site development, you could do it, but it's not workable. So have you had that? You still have that same relationship?
The relationship with the Department of Land Management is great.
Right.
Our 2 survey guys are working under the supervision of the chief of cadastry, and when we request information, they have been very helpful in providing.
That's good, because, Madam Chair, basically here, I want to just put one more piece in there, because when we were working on this together in the past as well, Bureau of Statistics and Plans was involved also. I think, I would hope that you guys would reach out, because they have a co-mandate, particularly with coastal management and some of the other main issues that they deal with, federal consistency and other things that will go into other subdivision developments. And also just because they have a GIS function as well. There is an opportunity for synergy there too, Joey, to kind of loop that back at least. And that's how they developed the land app and other things that they had done to make this efficient. But I'm glad to know, Joey, that all that stuff is still intact, because as the chair, as our speaker and Madam Chairwoman has mentioned, that I think there really is a way to move quickly on those parcels that have already been identified, and that's hundreds of families. That's a game changer if we can get that done going forward, because I know there are many. And then you mentioned under Suda with Carlos Camacho. I know that a lot of work has been done there as well. So a lot of these things are just on the edge of getting done. And so, Mr. Chairman, I just want to, and you have your acting director, but as you get to your final process of hopefully that will happen soon, where you get a permanent director in place, I would hope that this would be your priority, while this is on the table.
Yes, sir. And the team is planning on putting it into the agenda for our next commission meeting next month.
I guess I only have one more question, and I don't know if the board would want to jump in on this. Obviously, this is a tedious task, and you've internally, because you've got access to Department of Land Management, you've got those tools. Say, for example, in a perfect world where you were able to get what the resources you needed to be able to get through this list and kind of move with greater alacrity, if you will. Do you envision any type of opportunity, maybe working with title companies or any other type of outsource capability to kind of do? I know that we did this when we did when we digitized all the maps, and we worked with a private vendor to make sure, and Department of Land Management, when we were in the stone ages of having to go in and pull out maps, and we don't do that anymore. We sit down at a monitor and pull everything up, and it was very successful. You're talking about thousands of documents and research and everything else that were digitized and transformed the whole library, if you will. maybe I'm just being really out of the box right now, but has there been any talk about that or any capability of maybe contracting some of those services?
At this time, there has been no discussion regarding outsourcing any type of task to title companies. Currently, like the director had mentioned, we are exhausting all our resources, whether it's through the Guam Ancestral or the Department of Land Management. But at this time, there has been no discussion about outsourcing.
So, Joey, one final question is, and to any of the board members, on your current lots that have been identified that are matched up with those recipients, are there any outstanding survey issues that some of this money can go to settle as well? That if it was just something involving a survey, that family's ready to go in, either there's already infrastructure there or they're going to get started on the property. Are there any outstanding survey issues with regard to Chamorro Land Trust recipients who have already been awarded that we need to fix up? Access, setbacks, easements, problems with former surveys or the like?
One of the prerequisites in order to get a lease issued, not necessarily approved, but awarded and executed, is to get the property surveyed. So in relation to your question, there is a lot of pending surveys that are needed. We have a lot of leases that were awarded in the past that still read a portion of because they weren't able to survey the property. And since you mentioned the $25 million for the utilities, one of the prerequisites in order to install utilities is to have a survey done. So the right of way will be delineated and the utility companies would know where to run the water line, or the private company, whoever's going to do the installation.
So, Madam Chair, I bring that up because that also, as we look at that impediment, we may be able to set up under that program the capability of getting that done under a mass survey, and its economies of scale are there, and then you could amortize that to the beneficiary, saying this is part and parcel of your entire situation. Because I've seen the frustration, and you know this, Joey, from recipients who they want to go out and do their survey, and they know it's going to cost them between $1,500 and $2,000, but they're worried about the other markers and the other corners and everything else. So they got all this capital outlay, and then they end up and they start to build their house, and they realize the roof line from the house next to it is on their property. So, Chairman, if I could also have you, tackle that as part of the comprehensive plan, because if we realize this opportunity, I mean, these are the things where we've had people that are waiting, and it's not their fault sometimes about the survey. It's the contiguous properties. And so if we can settle that as well, I know we could move this a lot faster.
Yes.
With that, that's all I got, Madam Chair, for now.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. Senator Brown.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon, Chairman Regis, to the board members, to staff of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. We're at a juncture at this point where essentially we have an opportunity moving forward to correct the issues of the past. Not that it's going to eliminate it, because I think we're going to have to do two things. We're going to have to move forward in the proper way of ensuring that we're properly issuing these parcels of land for the intended purpose, ensuring that these parcels of lands are properly surveyed and they go to the requirements of what it is that we want to see. And then we're going to have to backtrack and correct the deficiencies of the past, because unfortunately land trust has just been clouded over the years with misuse of property, all the way down to land agents and Chamorro Land Trust who benefit themselves and their families with land trust property. We've seen that over the years, and it's been rather unfortunate. It hasn't set the best example. So I think we look at this certainly as an opportunity in a juncture where, as we move forward, we have to correct those issues with the new land leases that are being given, ensure that they're being put in place in the proper order of the families that actually applied, rather than those that have jumped ahead because of their political connections or whatever the case may be. And we're familiar with some of those cases. We have individuals that have received land trust property adjacent to their private property. I didn't know you could make to order, like the drive-through. But we've seen that happen with land trust property. We've seen a whole set of families that have received land trust property, that have jumped ahead of many others. And so we want to see a sense of fairness and equity, because this is the intention of the land trust, was to ensure that those eligible recipients would have the opportunity to receive these properties, either for, for housing, for living in, building their homes, or for agricultural farming. As some of you, I know Eileen knows, it's almost been 12 years ago that we worked with the University of Guam, with Chamorro Land Trust at the time. Chairman Oscar Calvo had requested assistance from the university to address compliance of the agricultural lots. And unfortunately, in the course of that, I don't know if any additional review and inspections have been done since that time. But during that time, there's a lot of non-compliance. I mean, they say we're growing junk cars and other things, but we're not doing what's intended. And that's very concerning, and I know our speakers are aware of this, as we all are, especially when there are families that are still waiting in line, maybe families that will never receive land. At some point, we will run out of land. And as the generations go down, there are those that are children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren that may never have the opportunity to receive property. So more the reason we want to ensure that those that do have it, that are fortunate enough to receive this property, are using it for its intended purposes and doing it in compliance with what the requirements are of the land trust. One of the key things that need to be done, essentially from the ground up, is the surveying process. I'm a little concerned when you talk about tabletop surveys, because we've seen the implications of working with tabletop surveys. And as Senator Duenas had mentioned, if you don't have an actual topography map of the property, and you don't have familiarity with it, you can end up dividing, which has happened. You've had land trust recipients who've received property that come back and say this land, for whatever reason, it could be in a hillside, a cliff, whatever the case may be, that's not usable. The danger also by having land trust recipients, which is kind of how it's been set up, because the land trust has not had the finances to do these large surveys, in some cases, not all, is that you don't have consistency. And it's a bigger issue with the land management overall, and I'm sure at some point we'll have a hearing on that issue, where there's overlaps, and that's not uncommon, because you have different surveyors, and even though we know they're key market, I'm not a surveyor myself, but I'm going to assume if there are key points that we use for reference and we lay it out, it all should come up the same, but it doesn't. And even land management knows. Land management has given titles to properties to families on this island that overlap other titles that have been given. Even now with all the wonderful electronics that they have and capabilities they have there with their computer system, and they get to show it on the screen and how wonderful that is, there's a lot of inaccuracies of land that has been, and all the official signatures are on the map, but they overlap. So we have families with conflicting interests. We have people who may have bought property that they think they own, but the original title was filed years earlier by the original property owner, and they may end up finding out they have no land at all that they believe is theirs, because this whole issue of who has their markers where. So that process has not been a very good one. So I hope the intention moving forward is not to have individual surveys being done, because we have seen the problems in the past. The other thing too in moving forward is to make sure you have proper registered maps. That are legitimate maps, because I've also seen maps that supposedly in the past have been done for Chamorro Land Trust on properties, but yet these maps were never fully completed or fully executed. The maps don't fully represent the conditions of the property, what's located on the property or adjacent properties. And I don't have evidence that these maps were ever formally completed, which is an obligation a registered land surveyor who is hired to produce a map must do in order for these maps to be properly filed. So we don't want to put people in the same situation like we're talking about, where we don't, they always use the word the mahon, where's the marker at? And how come the markers are overlapping? Or whatever the case may be. But that hodgepodge process that has been put in place in the past, as you mentioned, lots were even given out with no survey. No way to verify who owns what lot number. Recipients that, 15, 20 years later, because they had to move from the property they originally got was not usable, are still waiting in line to get another alternate property. So I think we have an opportunity to move forward in the correct process. So I think if we're going to look at any maps of these, you said there's possibly 3 lots here moving forward that can be available, I think we need to ensure that those properties are properly surveyed. Because I don't know, do the staff that you have, the two that you mentioned, are they registered land surveyors, or are they registered land surveyors?
No, Senator, they're engineering techs.
Okay, so more the reason you're going to need to get a licensed land surveyor and actual do physical surveying. I can't go file my lot either unless I have a registered land surveyor that can meet all the requirements, putting forth my map so I can go file it with land management. So I don't think we should assume because we're the government that, we'll just do it as we've been doing it. I think in order to correct the issues with the historical issues of the land trust, we need to make sure that these are the model lots moving forward. So tabletop survey don't cut it. I can sit here and put a tabletop survey. I don't think we're going to be any further along working with that. So I definitely think we need to do that. The other issue that we need to address is because you're looking at Northern Guam, I think you need to take it a step further beyond just working with the utilities. I think you need to work with WIRI at the University of Guam because they do have a lot of information and research that the legislature on behalf of the people has helped fund with regards to the subbasins and the waterlands in Northern Guam. This idea that it's a magic formula, half acre, we just get the half acre and that's going to cut it. Depends on where, especially if you're looking at a large, development of, 80 lots, for example, times a half acre in Northern Guam. What is the impact because you don't have sewer available and that you're just simply installing septic tanks? That's not a magic formula. That may have adverse consequences. If we were going to have a major developer build a subdivision, we would automatically have an expectation that they're going to install sewer. So if that's not the case, I think we need to make sure that we're not in any way contributing to the further degradation of our drinking water, because we can be on the land, but if we're contaminating our waterlands, on top of all the other unregulated events that are occurring up there, we're not getting any further as a people. So we need to be very mindful, and I think you need to include that in your process. I know at another juncture, like I said, Madam Speaker, I think we need to address the issues of some of these other maps because there's some concerns that have been addressed and have brought up to me with regards to that. And that's when we go backtrack and we have to address those deficiencies, especially if those maps were paid for, but they were not properly completed or they weren't registered. So I don't know. And I'm very curious how much actual land trust property that have been handed out are actually properly registered. I don't know. But I don't think with these newer lots we can move forward doing individual surveys. They just don't add up. And then you have the issue, you also have disputes. And that's not uncommon, I'm sure, as land agents for Chamorro Land Trust, I'm sure you've had to deal with some of those issues because of the disputes that come up of people saying, wait a minute, I've been here the last 15 years and so came along and they're putting their road through my lot. I mean, we're not getting any further, with that type of practice. So please, I think moving forward, we need to address those concerns. And then also in the issue of transparency, also the ability, Mr. Chair, and to the board members, demonstrating how are you right-sizing the list of applicants? How are you ensuring moving forward that the lots that will be given out are in the proper order of the individuals that applied? How can you give people that sense of trust in the land trust that it's being done properly? So it's not like, hey, my cousin Anna, they didn't apply till 2020, 15, and look, they got the lot before me. That happens. I think we need to see that. How are you going to demonstrate publicly how you're going back in time to make sure that it's in the proper order? I think we all know what the objective and desire was. Goodness, I was here 25 years ago when back in 1995, when the whole process of having these lots distributed started. But while lots have been given out in a lot of ways, we're not where we would like to be. And I think you, Mr. Chair, board members can concur. We're not where we'd like to be with the land trust. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. A lot of corrective action that has to take place with what's happened in the past. So I think moving forward, we're going to need to see how do we step it up to make sure that we are meeting the proper expectations of the legislation being put in place so that we are correcting the mistakes and misuse of the land trust in the past and making it better And having a sense of confidence, not just by us as policymakers, but the community and ultimately, the recipients that are entitled to be able to occupy these properties. And then another step, how is the land trust ensuring that the property is being used for its intended purpose? Because that's not always the case. The stories continue. And again, I think when you have the opportunity and you're a recipient of this, you're fortunate enough to have this, and by all means you should comply by the rules, because as I said, there are many other families that will never have the opportunity in their lifetime, and they're just as eligible, that will never be able to get a piece of property they can hold on and look to and say, oh, this is where my home is, or this is where my farm is, that I can grow my crops and take care of my family, or build it up to a commercial level so that they can make a living doing it. So I think we need to be mindful of that. Madam Chair, I'm not going to belabor this because I know the specific intent of your hearing this afternoon, but I hope that in the follow-up hearing that you will have a separate oversight hearing with regards to Chamorro Land Trust, that we will go back and address the issues with regards to the land agent reports and documents to that effect, as I relayed in a formal letter to you last month. I think those issues are still outstanding, and I think in terms of building confidence of our community, some of those issues are going to have to be addressed. I don't think the resignation of Mr. Haddock and his departure from the CLTC is going to change some of those issues or questions. I think those questions need to be asked. I think we have an expectation they need to be answered to make sure that if there are any additional documents that perhaps may have been altered, we need to find out what those are and make sure that they're corrected moving forward. So that again, we have no sense or fear that we don't have the level of transparency or accountability in the land trusts. We need to build that. We need to build that moving forward. I think we collectively all share that view, but now the hard work begins. So I will defer that, Madam Speaker, until you call your next oversight hearing with regards to CLTC. But those are the specific concerns, as I mentioned earlier, that I'm relaying, because I think we need to address that. And I certainly appreciate, Madam Speaker, also, I know you will continue your shepherding of the land trust so that we can get status updates as we move along, not just for our benefit, but certainly for the public and the recipients out there of where the land trust is with regards to moving forward on this process. With that, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to provide comment.
Thank you, Senator Brown. I appreciate your insight from your experience in the past with the land trust, and I think the one thing I just wanted to add, and what we've been talking about as well within the agency and the land agents is the compliance side. That's a really big thing for me, coming from the banking industry and analytics and reporting, and even from the healthcare industry. From my experience, compliance is a big piece, and so sometimes you don't want to necessarily, burden our constituents, right, with coming down on them from that perspective, from a compliance perspective. But the use of the land is important, right? Because if you're given a 20-acre property for farming, you're using 1 acre, that's 19 acres I could give out to, or times 2, right, for residential property, right? So those are some of the things that, as I joined the commission, those are some of the questions I asked, right? Because of personal knowledge as well from extended family who have large parcels, and I know what they're using, right? Because we go to the ranch. So those are some of the questions I did ask. The other thing that I definitely appreciate is the surveys. Meeting after meeting, we do come across some of those examples with our constituents. Or just the last meeting, it's private property, and we actually issued a lease for a constituent. So, the compliance piece is huge for that, right? And so that's where I wholeheartedly agree, and that those are some of the things that we have to continue to work on. And just, I guess, not to belabor it, but your last comment, right, on transparency and the issues that we have encountered 2 months into me joining the land trust, right? And I appreciate to bring it up, because that is that was the one thing that, yes, it took us longer as a commission to make some moves, but it also took us we knew the position we took. We knew that transparency and being and integrity is a big piece of us individually as commissioners and as well as the agency. Just to kind of to do some circling back, right? I took it upon myself to ensure that, going backwards, right? I took a look at 2020 and if there's any other inconsistencies, again, just within that period, right? Because we could go into 2019 as well. But there were some inconsistencies, but there was, and I took a look at things that were actioned by the board, but those inconsistencies wouldn't have made a difference on the action and approved motions that the board took, right? So I just wanted to also add to that, just to give that reassurance as well that, going backwards as best as I can with what has been approved, right? Primarily because those were taken action on, that, anything that was inconsistent, just what I looked at through the motion and through the land agent reports, there's, nothing would have changed on the decision that the board made, right? There was nothing that would be out of the ordinary. It was just, it was more of a format or even a wording change. But to your point on our February 18 meeting, that was live on Facebook and transcribed, right? That was definitely where, that's at face value, right? The prior director did not necessarily deny, right? And I know going forward, and our Ms. Eileen was brought into the mix of anything going forward. There was a guidance or more of a memorandum sent out by the previous director on how to handle these land cases, land agent reports. So the reassurance from that going forward after that February meeting, there wouldn't be any of that misrepresentation, right? Because there was that official guidance. The prior director took himself out of the mix. We made it very clear as the commissioners that it's a misrepresentation of the land agent. And so you need to either, if you're going to put something in addition to that, you need to be explicit and say, this came from the director, this came from the land agent, and this came from the senior land agent or whoever else added to the mix. So, after that February 18 meeting, a couple of days later, I believe, there was a memorandum sent out to the land agents on how to handle these matters. And it has improved dramatically over the past months when we met. Our ask was to be more concise and making sure that our facts and chronological orders of events was there, and it helped us, right? And if you look at our meetings, 2 to 3 hours is just focus on those constituents, because we take the time, we review the notes, we review and ask all the questions that we need to ensure that, number one, it's following the law, right? And number two, that we're going to make sure that it's also in the best interest of our constituent, because either this is the first, second, or third time that they've come to the commission, it shouldn't be the case. We're dealing with the backlog, and really that's all we've been doing. But it's important, because those mistakes of the past is what we're using to ensure that as we go now into the thousands of 1995, we have a guidance and an SOP that will take us through that process and can get through that list a lot quicker than the 20 that we have had standing in the queue since December. So I just wanted to, thank you for bringing that up, and I just wanted to add and give our senators, our people that, we've taken the proper measures to make sure that there's nothing that will slip through the cracks or even added on. And if it is, and if it's worth the conversation, we will address it as a commissioners. And with the additional help and guidance of our legal counsel and our team that goes through these things for us, so that we can actually, make the decision and try and get through things a little quicker, because it's a daunting list. But I don't think that it's not doable. It's very doable, and we just need to, put a stake in the ground and really move forward and continue to do what's right and what's best for our constituents, especially those that have been waiting or that had a lease and had to take it back and are still waiting again. So just wanted to again, I'm sorry, Speaker, to belabor that, but thank you, Senator Brown.
I appreciate, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I see your earnestness. I just think that issue still needs to be addressed at another forum. I mean, I understand clearly for the Speaker today that was not on the agenda today, but I'm just bringing it up because I still believe we still need to have that discussion. We need to know what's left in the records, and I won't belabor it any further. I do want to add on, though, because Senator Chris definitely brought up a very good point. I realize a lot of it's related to funding, and that's one of the reasons the Land Trust is just sort of crawling along. But there are areas certainly where having the resource would allow you to facilitate, to get the expertise you need to help you, because otherwise it's very difficult with your current resources to do it all, be it hiring the licensed surveyors to go out and do the work, the other expertise that you need to be able to plan these properties, the development, the use for it. Is this more compatible for residential? Is it more compatible for agricultural? I mean, there's many opportunities and grants that are available. I know you're looking at that first, of course, in terms of being able to finance housing, which is one of the major I mean, not everybody has all the money. I mean, I have a house mortgage. Thousands of people on Guam have a house mortgage. But how do we facilitate so we can take land trust property so that the recipients can be able to go out and get a loan to build a decent home, so they're not left with a wood and tin structure that, the next typhoon, they have no sense of security or safety. So I understand that. But I think that's what also you need to look at, and where are those areas of key expertise that you need that can come in, because you might not need it on board all the time, year after year, but certain parts when you're developing these lots moving forward, because we want to make this be the example of how we want to move forward, to ensure that this is how these lots are going to be developed, so we're not just throwing property at people with no surveys, no resources, no infrastructure, basically, some people can survive without the power, but definitely not the water. I mean, how do we do that so that we actually put into place, make tangible what was the vision, right? And I think Mrs. Berdalio, board member, I think for your own, your husband's interest in this and the legislation, I'm sure you feel a personal sense of that connection, of wanting to see that vision implemented. And it's how can we facilitate working smarter? And do it in a way that now, because of a lot of dissension and distrust, shall we say mistrust of the Chamorro Land Trust, how can we move forward to correct that so that we can ensure that there's accountability in the process, and that people who've waited so long, feel a sense that there's hope, and you're going to get to me at some point and you're going to address my issue. So I appreciate the speaker's agenda today, and I won't get further into that. But I'm just relaying those other options that need to be pursued to facilitate where you need that assistance at certain times in this process, so that we can get back on track of where we intended, where we want to be with this process, so that we can move on. I think we all want to move on. And then go back and how do we correct the deficiencies in the past and ensure compliance of those that are not in compliance. It's not that difficult. I don't have any qualms about if this is the agreement and the arrangement. If I'm signing to agree that I have to do the following in receiving this property, then I have no reservation in going back and saying, our commitment has to be worth something. I think we're getting to the point, we're getting a little lax that, every little thing we disagree, we just let it go. Basta, just let it go. And all we're doing is making the problem worse for others and for the next generation that is coming not too far behind us. So I just think we need to address that so that we can move forward. With that, Madam Speaker, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Brown. If I could just clarify a couple points then. So, Mr. Chair, in regards to the land agent reports, in your most recent letter to me, you said that you had, and today, you said that for 2021, you have a new procedure going forward. You don't expect any discrepancies, and you haven't seen any. And for 2020, that you went back and reviewed them, and that there were, in your letter to me, you said there were 2 reports that had inconsistencies, but then today you're saying that those inconsistencies, after further review, just amounted to nothing that would have impacted the board's decision, and so you're saying that this issue is resolved pretty much?
Correct.
All right. Maybe if you could send us something in writing again to just
Sure.
confirm that. Senator Brown, are there any
Yes,
other
Madam Speaker.
issues on that you would like clarified in the letter that he might be sending?
I just think the issue needs to be looked at, Madam Speaker, publicly so that we can ensure that wherever, because, also the chairman, when I did further inquire if because I had asked in my FOIA request for the original land agent reports. And he wrote back to me informing me that there were no second copies or original land agent reports. There were only one official report that was provided to the committee members. My logic tells me that there should be an original land agent report that was put together by the land agent, because each of these reports have the initial of that land agent at the bottom of the page. If I were to look at it, I'm assuming that the land agent, that the initials are at the bottom of the page, wrote that document. I'm concerned that there may be cases, and maybe it doesn't substantially impact the ultimate decision made, but it does not, and it may not reflect what the actual report of that land agent was if there's alterations that were made to that document. I'm hoping there was no substantive impact, unlike the February meeting when that case was brought up to you by one of the land agents, where if had it moved forward, there would have been a substantive impact that would not have been desired. So I still think that needs to be corrected. I think it's something that we would also like to ask the land agents their review of this issue as to whether or not the final report is reflective of their work product. There's nothing to keep your executive director from coming in and providing their own recommendations to the commission. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But that individual needs to acknowledge that this is my this is what, land agent, Chris Duenas wrote. I agree or disagree. I recommend the following. Nobody's going to argue that. Maybe, that's a better view. It certainly is members of the commission, you can determine if you agree or not. But I think there's an issue of concern when the official report represents the work product and name of the land agent, but that document may have been altered and then submitted to you, and you're thinking that's the work product of the land agent, but it may have been altered. And the only one I think ultimately that is able to answer that question is going to be the land agent that supposedly put the report together. I think we need to have that discussion so that we have some comfort and the public has some comfort moving forward that we're on track. And certainly if you put new and better procedures in place, we'd like to hear what those are so that there's a public awareness of it and acknowledgement of it. And then we can all say, okay, sounds good, let's move on from here. But that issue, that cloud's still hanging out there, and I want to get that addressed because I don't know what else may have been changed in the official, what we look at and should be the official record as all of us come and go in our lives in and out of the land trust. We want to make sure the official records are exactly that and that they've not been altered. And it's also, I think, a need to do that for your land agents so that they have a voice in this process. And they feel that what their work product is what's fully being represented. It's not been changed, it's not being altered, it's not being manipulated. Because it's a difficult position for them to be in if their boss is telling them one thing and they know that they shouldn't be doing it that way, or they feel uncomfortable and they don't say anything. A lot of people don't, they just let it go because, gosh, am I going to take these people on? So I just believe we still need to go back at a separate hearing and have that discussion. And then once we're done, hopefully the issues and concerns are addressed. The land trust can demonstrate how those official records have been corrected. And we'll find out in the process what is and what is not substantive. But what the speaker just mentioned that you relayed to her and what you relayed to me are two different things, because you officially responded that there's only one agent report. And I'm of the belief that my logic tells me there should be two. There should be the original land agent report, and if it was changed or altered by the previous director, there should be and I assume that's what was given to the board.
What was given to the board was presented into the packet, yes.
Yes, and that's my point. I still believe if it was ever changed, then the land agent has their original report, and then there's the report that was submitted to the board members. And I assume you're not going to know on the face value. How would you know? You're assuming what's being represented to you is correct.
Correct.
And that is the work product of the land agent.
Yes.
And I would like to think that too, but my mind tells me otherwise. The logic just in my own brain doesn't follow through. That's why I think we need to have a separate forum to simply discuss this, because These are the things that have plagued the land trust for so many years because there has been abuse. There's been abuse from the outside, from those that have received the land, that have abused the use of it, and there's been abuse internally because there have been employees of the land trust that have benefited or benefited members of their family. All of a sudden they got to the front of life. All of a sudden, how did they get the beachfront property? And they can point into, his daughter got this.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's not the kind of stuff we want to hear. I don't think it's what the public wants to hear. We want to ensure that there's no misuse of those resources. I don't even know in the process of ethics in government agencies that we have to put something that you have to sign your life to that you don't get to abuse your position. May not be you personally or anyone in front of us, but we all know, right? Commissioner Member Santos, we know that this has happened. So I just believe that that has to be a separate discussion on another day. And as I mentioned, I know this is not on the agenda of Speaker Terlaje this afternoon, but I think that
Yes,
issue still needs
but
to be
we've spent
clarified.
this much time on it. I really would like to resolve this issue. So, Mr. Chair, maybe I'm hearing something different than Senator Brown is hearing, but could you be very clear? For 2021, you have established a new policy. Is it possible for that to occur again where a director changes to a land agent's original report are not going to be indicated, that they would not be obvious to the commission that these were the director's changes?
Yes, so we have our senior land agent, Miss Eileen, who manages that process. She can speak to what has been occurring.
Okay, so a new process, not possible going forward, right?
Correct.
Going forward, the commission is comfortable that they are going to know if any original land agents' reports have been altered, right?
Before Ms. Eileen proceeds, may I just add something into our chairman? What he said earlier. Since that meeting, we've been bringing every meeting after that, how can we improve transparency? And how can we get to that point where we do restore and recover the trust for the land trust with our people? We are well aware there are over 8,000 people in line. That's our main mission, is to get this ball rolling with tending and catering and leasing out the land that is for our people with every bit of ounce of care in us as the commission. You said earlier, you have Defuntu Paul Bardalio's wife on it. You have Senator Ben Pangalinan's nephew on it, and my brother Angel Sanchez. That should be more of a staple within our island to be like, okay, they're gonna do something. Let's hold them very accountable for it, because we're holding ourselves really accountable for it right now. Senator Brown, when you mentioned about the land agents and what we've been dealing with, every meeting we bring up instances like the last meeting we had, I asked, all right, we already know that in every administration, you have a different director that's appointed. How can we tighten our GUAFEC to make sure there's no more cracks and we can go and sell our SACMAN without having to make sure that somebody might not tie the knots and the cell's gonna go astray. That's not gonna happen ever again. We're the commission that's gonna do that. I wanna just state that right now. So for the trust, please believe it that we wanna restore and recover that trust.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. And so as for going back, your investigation, could you please provide the committee with the, you indicated in your letter there were 2 reports that had been altered. Could you please provide copies of those reports that had been altered and indicate the alterations and who made the alterations?
So Speaker, yes, that was for 2020 when I went back to all the summary reports of all the motions that were passed by the board. And so yes, I can do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I met directly with the land agent for those 2 that I thought was inconsistent. For 2020, there was maybe 5 or 6, right? It was the height of the pandemic, so there weren't a lot of commission meetings, and then they didn't have quorum, so there weren't a lot. So I was able to get through that. So yes, I can do that, and I'll get our acting director to assist me with that.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, I have want to, ask some swift questions if I can. So please confirm how many are still on the waiting list on the 1995 original applicants.
I'll pass it. Thank you.
How many on the waiting list from the 1995 original applicants?
Madam Speaker, can we provide you the exact number?
All right. Is it still
Later.
over 8,000?
That is the total.
Okay.
We have about, I believe, 11,000 some applications. We have awarded roughly about 2,000 some leases. So that's the total. Just within 1995, if you allow us, we'll provide you the exact number after the hearing.
Okay, thanks. If I remember correctly, that's the bulk of that 11,000 was from 1995. Okay, and now you've adopted rules and regulation, or at your last meeting, you said though that they are with the Attorney General's office. Is that part of the Administrative Adjudication Act? Are these rules going to be processed through the Administrative Adjudication Act, or they're still with the AG for some other purpose?
Currently, the proposed changes to the rules and regs is with our attorney, pending review and approval, and it will go through the AAA process.
Okay, are the leases, for the residential leases, being held in abeyance until these rules are passed, or are you able to process these leases?
Can you repeat that?
Are the leases, the new residential leases, being held until these rules are adopted, or are you able to continue processing leases?
We will still be able to process leases, but the leases will be processed on the proposed changes to the rules and regs. Because the proposed changes is parallel to the 35-112, so it
Okay.
will be processed within the parameters of 35-112.
All right, if there's going to be a delay in processing the leases because of the process of getting these rules through the AAA, they get transmitted to the AG's office, then to the governor's office, then to the legislature, please let me know if that is going to delay your issuance of leases, okay? Third is, are there SOPs, standard operating procedures, for residential leases in place? Or are those still being worked on?
There is an existing SOP in place, Madam Speaker. Although we are revisiting that SOP, there are some amendments that need to be done to the SOP due to the passage of 35-112.
All right, when do you expect that to be done?
Soon.
Okay. I hope it can be done soon. So how many applicants would you expect can be processed? And processing an applicant at this point, I'm understanding, means really just determining that they are eligible for a lot and that they are next up, right? And so how many can you process by the end of calendar year 2021? Before December? Do you have a plan for that?
At this time, there's no current plan to determine, or even that has been mentioned about the possibility of how many applications can be processed. Although, like what was mentioned during our hearing today, is that we are getting assistance from the Guam Ancestral to determine, or to be trained on how to determine an applicant's eligibility or the information that's available. After that, we should be able to determine or give a projected amount of how many applications we can process.
Okay, thanks, because the first thing I'm going to do is take that number per month that you're projecting and divide it by the 8,000 that are still waiting on the list to see what else we can do.
Yeah, so Speaker, just to add to that, right? So
Yes.
the 10 and the 10 that we have in queue right now, like I said, we're gonna with the current staff that we have, bifurcating their responsibilities, focusing on the day-to-day, focusing on the cleanup / the issues that the backlog that we continue to work on, and injecting these new leases, right, to begin the qualification process and eligibility. We're going to get through that in the next month, and they're going to report back to us in our July meeting. That's the expectation, and I think then we will be able to determine what's that churn number going to be,
Great.
right, through the end of the year.
Okay, thanks. All right, and now we talked about the inventory of land, and I want to just go back and confirm. We've got some that's pending land registration. We've got some that is pending subdivision. But prior to that, are there any that are right now ready for lease? You've got land for the landless property ready for lease. You said over 80 parcels. Is there any other property ready for lease? 80 is more than the pending applicants that you have in front of you, right? Okay. Are there any other land ready for lease?
With infrastructure and accessibility, no.
Okay. Without infrastructure, yes?
Without infrastructure and without accessibility, there is land available for lease.
What do you mean by accessibility? Meaning you haven't
Roads.
subdivided it for roads?
Access,
Are you able to do that? Subdivide. When you subdivide, you accommodate access, right? Or when does the access come in?
it's delineated on the map from the survey, the access road, but to clear the access,
Oh, to clear it.
yes.
Okay. So we've got land that's available and it just needs to be cleared, the access. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
With or without water? Remind me.
Without
Without
any
water.
utilities.
Okay. Can you please send me the details of that tract or whatever it is that is available for lease right now? It's been subdivided. We've got an access road delineated, but we just have to have it cleared. Yes.
The parcel, it was not subdivided.
Oh.
We have raw land, parcels of land that is available for leasing, although they have not been subdivided. There is no utilities available, nor is there any access available.
Okay. I thought you said the access was delineated already in the map.
If a survey is done, for example,
Okay.
at least
That's kind of why I need a written inventory if you can, at least these stuff, not your whole inventory, but the ones that you're saying are available for lease, but they're not surveyed, or they're not subdivided, or their access is available but not cleared, versus everything's ready but no water, right? Just give me a listing of that. I'd like to just share that with the committee.
Speaker,
see.
may I?
Yes.
May I? Okay, so I think there's three categories that
Yes.
we can provide is ready for lease, without infrastructure, not subdivided. I think you were just kind of listing that, but I think there are three categories.
Okay.
Ms. Camacho has been taking some of those notes, and we can provide you those different categories.
Great.
Obviously, the one that's most will be the top of the list is that has infrastructure, which I believe is the land for the landless
Okay.
list. Yeah.
Great. And then we have 8 parcels ready for land registration, pending land registration. That's 800 acres. That's really a lot. So if these 800 acres are divided, how many leases can come out of these 800 acres, let's say, of course, taking into account, how many do you estimate per acre, taking into account access and other?
Are we considering that there's infrastructure such as water and power and
Yes,
sewer?
let's assume that.
Normally, maybe 3 to 4.
Sorry, say it again.
3 to 4 lots can be cut
Per
up.
acre.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want to know. And then, then you've got the 3 parcels in Jigo and Dedido that need to be subdivided. Are these included in the land that needs to be registered? No, these are separate.
Track 101, 23 is registered already.
Okay, and what about the other two?
Lot 7153 needs to be registered.
Needs to be registered?
Yes.
So that's included in the 8 parcels that need to be, that are pending
Somewhere.
registration?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then the last one?
Can we provide the information on the last one after the hearing?
Sure. Okay, so it looks like we might have, if we can get the land registrations done, 800 acres available. We need to subdivide. We can subdivide, you saying one of those parcels is 160 lots, right? 160 leases. Okay. And after the land registrations, you're registering land, you're determining whether water is available in these tracts or these huge parcels of land. And then we have to make a decision whether we're going to subdivide these or subdivide some other parcel, right? Which ones are a priority based on the water infrastructure availability, that type of thing. And that's why I like to see the list, right? So we can assist to put some money towards additional parcels, like you've got your 3 with water, these are 3 without water, and if we can help to get the water out there, that's why I want to see this list, okay? And then we still need to bring the water out and subdivide these, as you say, with access points and all of that, ready to lease, right? To make them ready to lease, they have to be surveyed and subdivided. Many of the lessees had to do this on their own.
Yes.
They were subdividing, they were making access, doing all the surveying at their own cost. I'd like to see how much of this we can get done on these parcels that are ready for residential people. And then of course, all of that waits for vetting of the applicants, right? So they have to work simultaneous, so I appreciate that you've divided this into 2 tracks. Okay, all with the goal to get these leases issued, right? And so we'll set a goal for this year, I hope, and that we can accomplish. Senators, are there any other questions that you'd like to ask? Senator Duenas, Senator Brown? Thank you so much. And so thank you again, Mr. Chair. I know several of your commission members are new, not to mention your acting director. I really commend you for the work that you've done, and I want to commend your staff. I know that they've been through a lot. Chamorro Land Trust has been criticized tremendously, and I want to thank the staff for sticking through it and doing really the hard work. And I can see the hard work that is being done, and I want to encourage you to please keep on. I know some of you are ready for retirement, probably. I've seen your faces a long time. But, one thing that I've noticed is that the minutes of the meetings are updated, and so that's very helpful, I think, for transparency purposes. It helps me to keep up to date with what you're doing. And if I could just make one little suggestion, that is your website and the audio recordings on Facebook that we are trying to monitor the meetings are really not audible. So if you can just do something to improve that, that would be really helpful.
So Madam Speaker, we tested last meeting the KGTF partnership for those broadcasts, and it worked out fairly well. So we're going to do that again for our live stream via KGTF. We're just to add to the live stream for Facebook, right? It's one of our staff, their phone, and the Wi-Fi drops and things like that. So I think the KGTF live stream worked last time. I think we're one of the first agencies to test that out, and we're going to continue to do it that way. So
great,
it'll be there.
And
thanks.
if I can add into that
Yes.
too, it's on YouTube and it's on the Guam Gov live channel.
Live?
Yes, the Guam
Okay.
Gov or Gov Guam live channel on YouTube.
Okay,
That's where it's going
thanks.
to be broadcasted.
I hate to say it, but this is the first I'm hearing of that channel. So thank you.
Right.
All right, I will check that out then. Great. All right, so again, thank you to the commission, to my colleagues for joining me today, and to the commission for their efforts to ensure the staff of the Chamorro Land Trust are being heard, that they are being given the tools for success, and that our applicants are also, being addressed and And I'm going to ask now that we allow, there's one beneficiary out there who would like to come in, if we could give up one seat, and we will invite her in.
While she's coming in, may I just add to something to what Senator Brown mentioned? You mentioned funding, and I really do appreciate your mention of that, because it is very big of the process for our land agents to do compliance checks, to provide surveying, and as well as assisting our constituents on a daily basis, and then taking on the lease that are pending, right? So thank you for that, and just acknowledging that that's one of the big, if not our main issues that we face in the agency. So thank you for that, Senator Brown.
Ms. Chargaloff, please identify yourself for the record. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You're Ms. Petrus? Maria Petrus? Please identify yourself for the record. So,
Okay. My name is Maria Patricia Veristo Petros, and I'm here today because I've been wanting to come into this session where I want to hear about this Chamorland Trust. And back then, I've been waiting for a long time when we applied down in, for Chamorland Trust. So when I had my name on the list on the Chamorland Trust when Monty Mothman was still around, I checked my name and my children, because I applied for my 4 children, and it was still there. So when, what's his name, Mike Borja became director, my name wasn't there, and my 4 children's name was still there. So I don't know what was going on, and he told me to go down to the Treasurer of Guam to check for the list. And I said, so I went down and checked, and then I asked one of the lady there, I'm here to find out my name is still on the list. I said, what that has to do with us here? It's up at the Chamorland Trust. So, okay, I went back up, and then he said that, check on the girls, so I did. Then they want me to reapply again, and I said, why should I reapply when I already paid $50 back then? Additional with my 4 children. So I don't know what's going on. So when I found it out when I wanted to apply for Guam housing, just in case if I get a Chamorland Trust, I wanted to build, maybe just like a ranch house if I get a lot. But they told me that my name wasn't there and my children's name weren't there because they had all the listings. And I was not the only one that also have this issue. So I'm here to bring this up because it really hurts me, and my mom right now is 92 years old. And I'm 67. And I asked for an acre and 4, for my children, 100 by 100. But I'm still waiting up to now. And I'm hoping that in the long run, maybe if they do, maybe land management get to identify, maybe like government in Guam land and give out all these Chamorro people that need the property, or give them a land so they can build something for themselves. But at least they can have all the existing water and, power, like you guys said, infrastructures and surveys that are certified. And, up to now, I'm still waiting. So I don't know what to do now, whether do I go back and apply again, or for my children and myself.
Ms. Petrus, may I ask the year that you applied?
Back in '95, I did with my mom. I brought her with me.
And your mom's name?
My mom's name is Angustia Evaristo.
Okay.
And she's 92 right now. And I applied down in PD. And when I was asking, when I was talking about it over the talk show, radio station, I overheard Oscar Calvo talk over. And he even said, maybe your mother terminated, you know, your children. And I said, why should she terminate it? I am the mother of my 4 children. And I said, you know what? You guys are well off. It's not like us, you know. We have nothing, but we want to build something, you know, and show our children, you know, when we plan or, you know, especially me, I like to plan and, you know, just for fruits and all this so that in the long run they can all know what is planting. But I don't know what's taking it so long, and I just want to know why that my name wasn't there on the list.
All right. Does anyone have an answer to that today? And if not, I'm going to ask that we've got the chairperson of the commission, we've got commission members here today, and we have the acting director of the Chamorro Land Trust here with us today. They have heard what you have had to say, and it's on our records as well, and I will follow up, and I'm sure that they are going to get to the bottom of that and give you the best answer that they can for your particular case.
Yeah,
And I want to thank you for
Thank you, Senator.
for your perseverance and taking the time to you know, put on the record what you believe is wrong that has been committed, and hopefully we can rectify it. We'll see what can be done.
I just like to bring this up because when Guam Housing mentioned that my name wasn't there, and not only me, but you know, maybe there's others that their names were taken away from, I don't know, but it's just like, it's hurting us because we're nothing, you know, we don't have land, we don't have, you know, and we want to build things, because nowadays it's getting to be so expensive, and everything is just going up, and, you know, people are renting out, and we need this, you know, so we can live with it too and make use of it, you know. So that's really hurting me, and also especially look at all the homeless too, you know, maybe they need that one too. So I'm just hoping.
I appreciate that, and I am sorry for the experience that you've been through, and for your mom as well. Commissioners, I'm going to trust that you're going to address this as much as you can. If you need my assistance, please let me know right away. Otherwise, I'm assuming this is, you will be able to address Ms. Evers. We're going to get your contact information before you leave, if that's okay. All right?
All right,
Okay.
thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Brown, Terlaje, and Reyna. Thank you.
All right, again, this is a good example that there's many people waiting since 1995. Some of them are passing on. This is a very urgent matter in my book that we need to address these applicants. We need to bring closure to as many of them as possible. And I appreciate the efforts that you are making to do this. Don't lose spirit. I know many have lost spirit over the years, even the applicants. And let's get this done. I think we can do this together. And we've got a great opportunity with ARP funding and other opportunities that I think, we're going to see huge shifts here. So thank you again. And there being no further testimonies or questions, I'm going to adjourn this public hearing. The time is now 4 p.m. Sidus Masi, Todos.